So why don't you tell us who you are, what you're studying, and where you're from?
My name is Prasewa Subantu. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I study international studies and political science with minors in peace and justice and gender and diversity studies.
Oh, great. So where are you from?
I'm from Chicago, but I do study in Cincinnati, Ohio at Xavier University.
Okay. And you said you're from Chicago, Illinois, right?
Yes.
But then you moved to Africa.
Yes. I moved to Ghana, West Africa at the age of 10 and returned back to the United States at the age of 14.
Wow. Okay. That's like a big move. Did that affect you in any way?
Yes. Because one, I thought it was a vacation, and I left in the middle of the school year. And unfortunately, that vacation turned into 4 years of me schooling at a private institution where we were taught British English, French, which I didn't know it was a language at that age, and also Twi, which is my local dialect.
Did you know any other language before you moved, or was it just pure English?
Twi, I do see Twi as my first language, and so I knew how to speak, but the problem was I didn't know how to read nor write, so I failed in that class the first year miserably.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Did people treat you differently when you were in Africa?
Yes. They knew I was born in the United States. So it was interesting that they did not see me as one of them, even though I sort of looked like them. They would call me names like Obroni, which is basically the word for Caucasian in Twi. And so you have people just following you and just are fascinated about where you're from, and they think that you're from heaven because they see the United States as this beautiful place and
wow,
heaven. Basically, there's no stress, no struggles.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you weren't bullied in any way. You were kind of just looked upon as something spectacular and American and amazing.
Oh yes. As they've seen in movies.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So you were a celebrity.
Right. Yep. For a year. After that, they're like, "Oh, you're now one of us." So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's amazing. They were very open arms and welcoming towards you.
Very, very.
Okay. Yeah. So I experienced the same thing, but kind of switched. I lived in the Philippines and then I came to the US, and if you were different, then you were treated differently. So my mom would stop speaking her native tongue. She would only speak English, and my dad specifically enforced English and having that American accent. Because they just didn't want us to stick out. Because we were already sticking out. We had the brown skin, the curly hair. So if we had that perfect American tongue, then they believed that then we'd be fine. So it was sad in a way that we lost part of ourselves, but it was in order, I guess, to survive and just not be discriminated against. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing that your parents wanted you to trace back your cultures and just relearn everything.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, my mom does not till to this day see us as American. She said you were privileged to born there, but you're forever Ghanaian and it runs through your veins.
It's amazing.
It took time to accept that identity because I was bullied in 2nd grade in the United States because they would laugh at my name. Made songs about it because they knew it was from an African descent. And that really troubled me because I thought I was American enough, but to them I wasn't.
Did you ever feel you weren't American or Ghanaian enough?
Yes, on both sides. So in Ghana, they didn't see me as Ghanaian, they saw me as American. But then in America, even in high school, I had this conversation. They're with my fellow Black American friends, and they're no, you're African. We're African American. And we just had that debate. I was well, African American, in my opinion, means an African that has obtained citizenship or was born in the United States, and they're called African American. And Black Americans are those who can trace probably their roots all the way to the slavery era, and they've permanently developed their lives in the U.S. So
wow,
yeah, they still didn't understand my definition.
Yeah,
and they kept pointing out, no, you're African, and I was just so where's the American in me then?
Yeah, So even then, there's still like separation in the community.
Oh, yes.
Like you're not fully there.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I experienced the same thing with like the Filipino community because they see me as Filipino American and I see myself as that. But when I tell them I was born in the Philippines, they're like, no, you're American. Like, technically you were raised here, therefore you're not fully like Filipino. Like there are just like, I guess, groupings of like who you are and what they believe that you are instead of who you are like truly or like wholeheartedly. I don't know.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. If you're not like traditionally like American or traditionally like Ghanaian or Filipino, I think it's just they believe you're just American.
Right.
They just try to group you in these things. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I think it's just so important to realize like how much of a melting pot the USA is. So like when people are trying to group people into like these names, like, oh, you're Asian, no, you're Asian American, no, you're whatever. I think they're just trying to like wrap their heads around the concept of like, oh, what is everyone truly? But really, it's just, you don't know. Why does it matter? Everyone's like, people are people.
Exactly. And we all have different characteristics. We all have decisions that we make on our own will. And so for us to group us and be like, oh, this group of people are violent. This group of people are just smart. You know, it's just all those stereotypes that are building up when we break those down.
Yeah. And I think that kind of like marginalizes us. Like puts us kind of against each other. Like, oh, you're from here, so that means I hate. Like, you know, I think especially in, like, Europe, like, a lot of, like, the countries are just like, oh, I hate, like, the Spanish or the French, and they think these are, like, the stereotypes of, like, they're lazy, they're mean. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Okay, so why did you decide to study political science?
I decided to study political science because I started traveling again in high school, where I would go to countries like India and France, and it was all through the U.S. State of Bureau. And so being given that opportunity through these governmental organizations, I just thought best that if they've given me the gateway, why not continue and see where this path leads me. Okay. And also to get marginalized groups to stand up and voice out, because we have, again, you know, majority making decisions for minorities that are not, I would say, long-term benefiting these minority groups. And so for us to go up there and also make a say that, hey, this law or this policy is not in favor of all of us, if there's a way we can, you know, find ways to come to a common ground.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think the representation in our Congress, in our, like, legislation is not enough. There's not enough colored women or just, I guess, people of color in general. And, like, it's a majority of, like, these old, like, white men that you see on TVs all the time, the whitewashing, you know, where it's, you understand, like, the history of America and just, it just needs to change. Like, we need something new.
We do. And with our generation, we're so innovative, aspirational, and, you know, we know what's up, especially with technology, because there's technology. We're the ones that's seen it to where it is now.
So how old were you when Obama was elected?
I was 10 years old when Obama was elected. Yes,
10. So were you involved in, like, his run? Were you, like, invested?
I was, because my parents were. They saw that this could be, like, the greatest change in America's history. And so I remember, like, watching the campaign and their debates at a very young age, and I could tell, like, my dad was definitely in support of Obama and going into communities to encourage them to vote, because every vote counts.
So then how old were you when Donald Trump was elected?
I was 19.
19?
Yes, 19.
Okay.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Right? And I think you were in Africa when Obama was elected, correct?
Yes. When he took over office, a month later, I left.
Okay.
Yes.
So you weren't there at all
during his first term, no. I wasn't able to see any changes apart from like the hearing of the death of Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I just heard that like he was making the U.S. I guess better, rising from the recession at that time.
Yes.
And plus, he made a visit to Ghana. So
that
was amazing. That was amazing.
I remember that. So, how do you think the U.S. has changed in general from the election of Obama to the election of Trump?
Good question.
Do you think it's more like separated? Like everyone feels like if you aren't with us, you're against us, or per se, like he's kind of bringing these like vocal minority groups to rise?
I think during the presidency of Obama, I believe there were uprisings of minority voices. It's still going on today, regardless of like the new presidency. But in terms of Trump being the president, I feel like minority voices are, even though they're still voicing out, I feel like they're finding themselves going backwards in terms of like just staying to themselves. Right now, what we're doing is not moving forward or is not creating any change in that sense. So it's like almost like about to give up on like trying to push for change. Since,
Yeah.
Presidency, yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just believe change just happens super fast. Since we're living in like an era where everything is just fast and like all automatic, like fast service, fast like consumerism, like fast everything, like internet, and you just expect everything to happen as soon as you say something.
Oh yeah, it's like a microwave.
Yeah.
Just put it in a hot pocket, 1 minute, it was ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Politics does not work like that.
Yeah. When was the first time you voted? When you were 18, did you vote?
I think the first time I voted was when I was 19 during the presidential election.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 So, did you know the impact of your vote? Did you understand like how strong that vote was and like the power behind that?
Oh yes, I believe I was electing people that I thought best to be in the White House system. But then again, one vote does count, but you also gotta look into the accumulation of those same votes. And so like I feel like with my generation at that time, we were not educated enough on how to vote, and also looking at the pros and cons of like electing this specific person into Congress, which I wish schools, especially high school, will teach us how to vote, and to encourage us to go into like neighborhood meetings or town council meetings, and just figure out how we can locally first change our environment and then look at it as in a broader perspective, which is the White House.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
And I think I completely agree with you, with no one really understanding like the impact of their vote and understanding like the strength in their voice.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people like they don't understand like politics in that way. They don't know how to follow it and like how to kind of wrap their minds around it, because it is a lot of like spinning. It's a lot of understanding what they really mean. So I think a lot of people just follow whatever their parents follow, and that's kind of just like an easy way out for them.
I agree. Also, social media or the media in general is very selective on what they want to put out to us to read or to grasp. And so being able to like fish out the fake news and what is true news, that could also help us in terms of electing our politicians.
So you're saying that younger generations should go out into the community and like see what they can do and be just more hands-on. I completely agree. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't even think to like go to a community meeting, correct? And just like sit and talk to people who are like hands-on and can actually affect me in like everyday things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to I've been to one in the neighborhood that I'm living in, Chicago, and it was just nice to meet the older men. You know, you have residents complaining, oh, we've never met our alderman, but they're at these meetings, presenting future projects and how they're looking into making the neighborhood or county like prosperous. If you're not going into this meeting, you're not seeing these small changes that end up going to be huge. And also like voicing out like, hey, we have a concern in this side of the neighborhood. Is there any solutions that you and your team can help with that? Because they don't know what's going on in every part of the neighborhood you're residing in. So you go into those meetings, you're telling them, hey, there's a problem with this. How can we as a neighborhood resolve it?
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Because I think like a certain person, like an individual, is just so overwhelmed with like, what can I do? I'm just one person. And so that kind of discourages them, and they think, oh, I can't do anything, so I shouldn't do anything. And so they throw away their votes. They don't even vote at all.
No.
Yeah, which is just crazy to me. Like, people have fought for your right to vote. Like, it is a privilege to vote, I believe. And to not see immediate change, I think that's what like gets a lot of people to just not participate in their government.
Right.
But I agree with you. Like, with the community like aspect of it, you can easily like voice your opinions with them. And if you're not happy, then you as an individual can vote them out. Like,
exactly.
It impacts so much more than like in a grand aspect. I completely agree. Yeah.
And also you gotta understand that they've been neglected for so long that no one is hearing them. But again, I see your point. You can actually find who is hearing you, who's willing to do those changes and vote them in. Just
exactly.
Keep them out. Yeah.
So how do you feel about the political parties in the United States? There's like specifically like the two biggest, Democrats and Republicans, and how it's kind of like very separated and against one another.
I mean, I do have problems with this bilateral system. It's either your left or your right. And me taking a class, an English class, which was focused on empathy in politics, I found it interesting that actually Republicans and Democrats actually could provide each other's needs, because they may be strong on each side, but they could actually come into a middle ground and decide on what ways they can move the country forward. And honestly, I feel like we should also stop thinking that we have to be left and right. I feel like we can be any part of the spectrum, whether independent, whether left, whether right. It doesn't have to be bilateral all the time. And maybe our problems could come from out of that spectrum in general. But I do think that Democrats and Republicans do need each other. Each party has a hole that the other could fill. And they just have to listen to each other. Just listen, understand, and work together.
Yeah.
It's all that simple.
Yes. That just reminds me of Daryl Davis, the African musician that actually like sits and talks to these vocally racist like Ku Klux Klan like leaders. And he, even if they are like spewing hate at him and literally telling him, the color of your skin, like, it angers me, you shouldn't be alive, like, you should be hanging in a tree right now, he literally just sits and he opens like a line of communication between them. And he's gotten like over 60 roads, which represent like over 60 leaders that have like dissipated their groups. So it's gone from like local communities to like state leaders that just like break down because they see like the humanity behind the skin. Like, they see that everything that they believed in was just false and was just from fear and hate and I guess like insecurity in general. Wow. So like the simple act of like just opening communication, I think it's so beyond everyone.
Yes.
I don't know why. Like, it's so simple to just sit and like breathe and just like put yourself in someone else's shoes. But everyone is so like, if you're attacking me, I'm gonna attack back. It's always like, I'm on defense and I have a wall and like, you can't get me because I know everything and you're always wrong, you know?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So could you ever, if someone was like always bashing you down and telling you you're not enough and I hate you and it's because of what you look like or who you say you are, could you ever sit down in a room and just talk to them?
Yes. Because I'm curious to know why and where the source cause of you having this ideology about me. I've been in numerous environments where I've been the only person of color. I think being in those environments has definitely strengthened me to figure out why there's always a low number of minorities in certain areas. And it's taught me to be open-minded. And so just having a conversation with this person, definitely, I just want to hear and understand where and why, and also share my perspective of what the person has told me, and see if we can, meet each other at a middle ground where we're not stepping on each other's toes. At the end of the day, I'm not expecting the person to turn 360 and just automatically fall in love with me. Yeah. No. That's not what I'm looking for. At least I can be able to reduce that level of hatred and insert a little bit of love from me, because I've been taught my whole life, especially from my dad, not to discriminate, whether you're majority, whether you're minority. Just share that love equally. Maybe that love will come back to you. If not, you've done something good.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you told me before, that the only way you could grow is with discomfort, correct?
Yes.
So do you advocate for that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I advocate go to places that you never thought you would be in, and be in discussions or environments where you feel uncomfortable. We need to learn to lean into discomfort, because you may never know. You can learn something new, and that new idea could turn into an innovation that can turn into something that can benefit everyone in the whole world. And being in this uncomfortable positions actually help us to understand what other people are going through and see ways we can promote peace in that sense. And also accepting each other's differences, being in that discomfort. So I encourage people, just go in with your guts. If it's a positive reaction, great. If it's negative, just learn from those lessons and move on to a new or different uncomfortable situation.
Wow, that was so inspiring. Thank you for sitting down and talking with me.
Anytime.